Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're back in War Thunder, but we're looking at the dev server. Yes, update 1.69 is now on the dev server, which basically means that the Italians are here, at least in testing. So we're going to have a look through all of the Italian aircraft in this video. The other video that I will do will look at the tanks that are also being released for other nations, and also the other aircraft that are coming for other nations. But let's have a look at this Italian tech tree. We start off with two versions of the CR-32, and of course the bundle aircraft of the CR-32 bis, which is the premiums. The premiums so far, the Marcolins and the CR-32 bis. If we go to the German tech tree, you can still see that the Italians are still here, but they will be removed once update 1.69 comes out. So we start off with two biplanes which have two Breda Safats by them. They're actually going to be quite powerful in my opinion, as long as they're anything like the CR-42 Falco. The BA-65 sits at 1.0, which is incredibly surprising to me, since it has nearly a max speed of 500 kilometers an hour. I don't know where they're getting this from, but it can carry two 100 kilogram bombs and 450, so basically 200 kilos of bombs, so not a ton, but with two 12.7s and two 7.7s at 1.0, I think this thing's actually going to be quite good. Its turn time isn't terrible, especially if it can get up to higher speeds. So let's look at the other stuff. We have the BR-20DR. Now this thing is a 1.7 bomber. As you can see, it's kind of a pencil bomber with larger wings. It looks very similar to the DO series of bombers from the Germans. Everything nicely modeled. Once again, about 400 kilometers an hour. Look at this. This thing can carry 1,600 kilos of bombs, and it's a BR 1.7. This what is this? What's going on? Bloody hell, I don't think we've had anything this low which can carry 1,600 kilos of bombs, but I'm pretty sure that it will take a massive hit in performance. But you can see there's the guns are here and up here, and it also has a turret on the front of it, this little lad right here. So that's your basic defensive armament. It's not going to have a lot of it. It's got a lot of bombs. It's going to be quite slow in my opinion, and the defensive armament isn't going to be that useful. But if this thing comes up against biplanes, God help you. We obviously have the CR-42, the G50 Series 2, G50 Freccia AS Series 7. None of that has changed. They've just transported it from the German tree. Then we have the MC200s, which once again just transported from the German tree, so nothing crazy right there. And then of course the MC202, none of these BRs have been changed. Obviously this is subject to change on the dev server, and once the update is released. Then we have the Breda 88 P11 variant, which is kind of interesting. But unfortunately we can't research it, because we don't have the vehicles, or because, well, we're not open to the beta yet, because I haven't bought the pack. So this is the Breda 88 P11, which you can see. An interesting aircraft, as I've covered before. Not a ton of armament, 3 machine guns in the nose, in quite an odd fashion, kind of on top of each other, and then one turret at the back, 463 kilometers an hour. It looks like they've gone on paper stats here and not exactly how this thing performed in real life. What a surprise. It can carry 3 100 kilo bombs at this moment on the dev server, which isn't a massive amount of bombs, but the model itself is very nice. The engines are absolutely huge, so if I was going to hazard a guess, I would go after trying to destroy these engines. Sorry for the background noise if anybody can hear that. The SM-79s, there's 2 of them in the first little tech tree, in the SM-79 Series 1 and Series 8, sat at 1.7 and 2.7, so they haven't modified the BRs yet. I'm pretty sure they will. The second one is the SM-79 Sparviero AS-41, the BIS TM-43, and the B-36. So the 5 Sparvieros that you could get in the German tech tree before. Unfortunately, the other 2, which looks like are just going to be confined to history, to be quite honest, which is very, very sad. Then we move on to some interesting new fighters. At Tier 2 we have the MC-202EC. Now the only difference I can see between these two planes is an armament upgrade. The MC-202EC gets some MG-151s, the 20mm that are standard on a lot of German aircraft, and as you can see they are wing mounted. I'm pretty sure these are going to be quite heavy on the wings, so maybe that'll make the dive speed a bit better, but it'll hit your rate of climb like a hammer, which is very unfortunate. The model is very similar to the MC-202 Folgore, which is a beautiful aircraft when it comes down to it. So that seems to be the only difference between the 202 and the 202EC. Moving on to the Z107 BIS Series 3 at 3.0. This is another plane that I've covered in a dev blog. As you can see, it is massive. It is absolutely huge, very long, and it's going to be a huge target. One thing that is interesting about a lot of these Italian bombers is their engines are huge. So taking them out shouldn't be too bad. No armor is really modeled in on the new vehicles. I'm pretty sure eventually armor will be modeled in, which is why I don't think it's worth discussing. But these engines, look at the beautiful models on these engines. Isn't that nice? Isn't that such a massive upgrade from what we've seen before? It's just astonishing. I love it. When it comes to the gunners, we have the 12.7 at the bottom. We have the 12.7 at the top, and then we should have 7.7s in the side, and that's about it. Unfortunately, no armaments looking forward. So what's the most important thing about this thing? Well, the bomb loads. Look how many of them there are. There are tons of them. We're an 800 and a 3 100s. So I just want to put this into perspective. This thing's major bomb load is 1600 kilos, I believe. If I'm getting this right, I think that's the most you can carry. That is the same as the 1.7 bomber, the BR-20DR. So yeah, something tells me there's something really wrong with this BR-20DR when it comes down to it. But it's still interesting nonetheless. 1600, and then of course we should have the 3 torpedoes. If I missed that, we have 1 there. Can this thing only carry 1? Okay, that's fine. So 1 torpedo for that. And then we have the Z1007 BIS Series 5, which is here. As you can see, a very similar model. The skin I don't really like on it, but I think it's going to be standard for a lot of Italian planes. It reminds me of the Japanese the tank skin, which makes it look like kind of a toy tank. But that's okay. It's very similar to the Series 3. The only real difference is, well, it's not even an armament. It must be in some other way. It looks like it has basically the same bomb load, so maybe it's just slightly better. Maybe I'm missing something. I might be missing something. You know how it is sometimes. But one of the things that is going to be an issue with these bombers is that they start off with some really dire bomb loads. This thing starts off with 1250 kilos, and to be able to unlock higher bomb loads, well, actually no, it actually starts off with the 100 kilos, which is kind of nice. That's a little bit better than 1250s, but it's still not great. It's going to take a while to grind these out. These are tier 3 vehicles, remember. Then we move on to the MC-205 series, which is probably the fighters that people are looking forward to. They're sat at 3.0 right now, which I think is completely fine. As you can see, they are very similar to the MC-202s that we have in game. This one is actually at 3.0, and it doesn't have any cannons on it. It's sat with the same armament as the MC-202 Folgore, but it basically has a better engine, a better climb rate. It's going to handle very similarly to the Folgore, apart from it's going to be faster. For me, this is probably going to be one of the funnest vehicles coming to the game that I haven't already played, just because it's going to handle like the 202 Folgore and also like the Kai-61 Ko, which is one of my favorite vehicles in the Japanese tech tree to fly. Moving on to the Series 3. Now, what's the difference between them? Well, this one gets cannons again. As you can see, that has 2 20mm German MG151s in the wings, and then it has the 2 12.7 Breda Safats in the nose. It should be. Wait, where are they sat? Ah, here they are. They're on the top. So, yeah. It's basically the same machine. It's going to be slightly heavier. It's going to be better in a dive, but slightly worse in a climb. But I don't think it's going to make too much difference. But according to Gaijin, that means that between these two planes, the Series 3 gets a 0.7 BR increase. I'm not sure about that, especially when you've only increased it by 0.3 here. Maybe that needs to have a look at. Next, we have the MC205N2, which has three 20mm MG151s, so it seems like every time we get an upgrade on guns, these guys get a BR increase. At 4.0, I still think this thing will be competitive. It's still pretty quick. What's going to happen is a lot of these Italian aircraft are going to have diminishing returns as we go up in the tech tree. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very similar to how the Kai-61s are in game, where when you get the first ones, they're actually really good, you enjoy flying them, and then once you start getting the upper echelon ones, you realize how they're not very good. As you can see, the 20mm is mounted in the nose, right behind the engine. Look at that lovely model. Isn't that a lovely model? Oh my god, I'm loving it. I'm loving the X-ray vision. I'm so happy they put it in the game. But once again, this thing will perform very much like the other 205s. Hopefully, the extra guns make it not handle like a brick. Like, if you're wondering what I'm referring to these, right? The, let's see, these Kai-61s, the Kai-61 Co is okay. The Otsu is very good. The 100 is amazing. And then once we move up to the Kai-61 High and the Kai-61 Tai, they handle like bricks. And then the Kai-61-2 is basically the same until you get all of the upgrades on it. And then it handles a little bit better, but it still handles like a brick. I hope this doesn't happen to the MC series. We'll have to see. The G55 SO, which is the, I'm guessing, the prototype variant of the G55, it is actually slower, or at least... let's see. Yeah, it's slower than the MC205s, but I'm sure it has some characteristics which benefit it. It seems to be a sleeker design. We have one 20mm cannon, which should be mounted in the nose, and then four Breda Safats. So we have four Breda Safats all in the nose, with a 20mm in the nose, with an engine. Bloody hell. Shoot the center of this aircraft, don't bother with anything else. Holy crap. But at 4.3, this thing's packing a decent amount of firepower. 250, 20mm of ammo is completely fine. That's enough to do basically anything to anyone. And overall, that's going to be an interesting thing to fly at 4.3. You've got to remember at 4.3, you're starting to run into some pretty serious aircraft when it comes to the British. I mean, the Typhoon, the Spitfire F Mark 9, it's going to be interesting to see how it spots up against that. And if it gets up-tiered, well, we'll see when we come to some of these others. So then we get the G55 Series 1, which is at 4.7. It has three 20mm. Once again, look at the skin. How beautiful is this skin? Wow. And then it's got the Italian flags. It's got a modified design of the Italian Fascist Party, because obviously we can't have that in game. You know, Gaijin don't like that. That's completely fine. It probably is against some certain rules. You have two 20mm in the wings, one 20mm in the center, and then the two on top. Something I didn't mention about the G55 Series 0 is because all of the guns are in the middle, or 5 guns are in the middle, then what that means is that convergence you won't have to worry too much about it. So I think overall it generally won't be too bad for you when it comes to accuracy. With stuff like this, it's going to be a bit harder to line up, but generally when we look at the guns, they are mounted quite close to the center, so convergence shouldn't be too bad. Should be quite easy to line up and get used to. This is quite quick at 609 kilometers an hour. About the same as the MC205, but I'm pretty sure these things are going to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to maneuverability. 650 rounds of 20mm is absolutely insane. It also gets engine injection, and it looks like they are sticking with the idea of giving fighters bombs, which is completely fine. I mean, the Italian bombers do actually have massive bomb loads, whereas these guys, not so much. Moving on, we have the P108 Series A, Series 2, which is probably the one which a lot of people are looking forward to. This is the 102mm donk gun. Look how big this thing is, and it just has a donk gun. This was the anti-shipping gun. A lot of people are looking forward to it to be used in you know, in tank battles and stuff like that, but it would be fun in air forces as well. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to have a look to see what this thing does. Unfortunately, we don't have penetrations on it or anything like that. Oh yes, we do. Oh my god. So the APT shell pens 140 750 meters per second, 80 grams of explosive mass. Ground target HEITs, you're probably never going to use. So you're going to use this, and you're going to destroy tanks. This should go through pretty much every heavy tank in the game. So maybe this will be a ground pounder. I'm not exactly sure how useful that would be. But look at the ammunition that they have stored here. Isn't that nice? Then you've got this guy. He's a gunner, but he also loads the damn gun. So we'll have to see how this performs in game. Oh my days. And then you've got two gunners over here, but remember that the actual guns are actually on the wings, on the engines. These guys are supposed to be operators, so once these guys get taken out, I'm guessing these guns will die. Then you've got two guns looking at the sides, and then one gun down below, and then unfortunately nothing in the front, but that's what happens when you have an Italian duck. The P108B Series 1, we've already gone over. These sit at 4.0. Now, the most interesting thing about this one, in my opinion, is this turret. The turret looks very interesting, and then the way, once again, the engines are mounted. A lot of people have been saying this is kind of a mini B-17. I don't think it's going to be as useful. As you can see, some armor is shown, which is basically around the gunners and the pilots and stuff. There is no armor on these engines, so just unbalance this thing is going to fall out the sky. It nearly sits at 500 kilometers an hour. I'm not exactly sure how accurate that is. This thing's going to be a lot slower than that. 50 kilograms, 3,400 kilograms. So off the bat, you start off with 3,400 kilograms of bombs. Just hopefully you can get it off in time. This is the machine with the 3 torpedoes, and as you can see, the torpedoes aren't very good. This was an issue that I talked about before. Drop speed range of 0 to 301 kilometers an hour. That's not great for a massive machine like this. And then having to be below 120 meters. Yeah, good luck with that. This thing, even though they talked about how it's going to be great at low altitude, well, technically you don't want it to be great. You want it to be slowing down. I think this is going to have the same fate as something like a Wellington. Even though the Wellington is kind of like it, but a much harsher extent, this thing's going to struggle as well. But then it has these 7.250s, 7.500s, decent bomb loads, and when it comes to its armaments, well, you know, you have the 2 guns on the side, you have the guns in the center and the gun at the bottom, and then a gun at the front. So if you're going to attack this thing, attack it from either below or straight in its face. Simple as that. So don't really attack it from behind. Even though they're only 12.7 Bredas, they're still going to do damage. Then we move on to the P108B, which is this one, the Series 2. It is the one with the more duck nose, as you can see. And, well, this, I don't understand why this has a higher BR than the other one. I thought this would have a lower BR. When we look at its bombs, it's exactly the same. I would probably switch these two guys' BR around, since this is just a weaker version in every way, unless somebody can point me to something else. Look at the exhausts on these things. How amazing is that? The exhausts look absolutely beautiful, but we're going to have to see how well this thing performs. I'm pretty sure they're going to struggle. That is the end of the bomber line, though. Hopefully we see some other things afterwards. I'm not exactly sure from my Italian knowledge what you could put in. There is the G55S, which is the premium at 5.0. The G56 it sits at 5.0 as well. This is the 5.0 Italian aircraft. It is quite fast, it has an amazing rate of climb, and it also has 3 20mm. Once again, 1 in the nose, 2 in the wings, so I believe this is probably going to be quite powerful. It's going to be a nice little turner, hopefully it's not too heavy from the guns, and it has, once again, engine injection. I haven't seen octane on any of these vehicles, which is kind of sad, but another decent fighter at 5.0. At 5.3 we have a Messerschmitt, because why not? I mean, simple as. It has 1 20mm in the nose, and 2 13s in the nose once again. You can get the modifications though for the 30mm and the 20mm, so it's very similar to something like a G14. Well, it is a G14 AS. Do you remember when I talked about the issues that Italy is going to have at Tier 4 around 6.0? Well, look, it looks like I wasn't wrong. We have a German Bf109 at 5.3 right now. We have nothing at 6.0, we have nothing at 5.7, nothing at 6.3. So, if you get into an Italian match, let's say an Italian-German match, and you're facing stuff like Mark 22s, or some of the Griffin Spits, or if we go down the line, you know, stuff like Bearcats, A26s, AD2s, P47s, I'm pretty sure they're going to wipe the floor with you. But yeah, that's just that's just something. It's nice to be validated on. That's going to be needed to be addressed. We have the F-84 G21RE. Now they had a choice here. When I looked at the Italian jets that they actually used, they used this, and then they used a version of the Sabre. Now, the version of the Sabre that they were going to use would have been a better version than the Sabre that the Americans currently have. And they also had an F-84G, which is a better variant of the F-84 that the Americans had. But it seems like they didn't go for the Sabre, and they went for the F-84. This is probably because they wanted it to be a lower BR than the Sabre, and also not to piss off the American players too much. It has 6 12.7 Brownings in the nose. It seems smaller than the F-84 that the Americans have. And also, it nearly goes 1,000 kilometers an hour, so this thing is pretty quick. Look at the bomb loads it can carry, though. This is very American. You know, 24 HVARs, 2 Tiny Tims, 2,000 pounders, 24 HVARs, 24 HVARs, 2 500s. You can see where they're going with this. This is going to be a decent aircraft when it comes to fighting other jets, and then it's going to be great at ground pounding after the initial battle is won and one guy is trying to run off. Hopefully they fix the F-84 so it can actually take off from the airfield, and hopefully that means that this will be fixed as well. At the same time, we have the G91s. So we have the G91 Pre-Series and the G91R1. So they haven't actually gone for the R3 variant yet. The R3 variant is the one with the 30mm, the 230mm. But this is the plane in game. Isn't it a beautiful design? Even though the snout looks kind of interesting. You're looking at 1,022 kilometers an hour at 8.0, 2 500s, 38 FFAR. So I was wondering if you could take both at the same time. It looks like you can't. That's very sad. If this thing could carry both at the same time, it may be useful. But with only 4 50 cal M3s, it's probably the least armored thing at 8.0. Actually, definitely it is, because the other least armored thing is the Sabre, I believe, which sits, no, it's at 9.0. Okay, at 8.0, you know, you have 4 20s on this. The F-84B has 6 12.7, stuff like that. So I think this might be the least armored jet in game when it comes to guns. So it's going to take a while to kill anything. When we look at its ammunition types, they're exactly the same as the American one. So it's going to be very useful. APIT is probably going to be the one that I choose. It does everything pretty much multi-purpose. The ground target belt may be one that you would consider. And then we have the G91RN, which is at the exact same BR. It is slightly faster. This is the one with the different camos. So instead of just having 2 camos on the same jet, which is what I thought when I did the dev blog, they've actually put 2 separate jets in game, which is fine. you know, the required RP as well. Make sure if you didn't look at them, go through them in the video. As you can see, it's a lot less than the tanks that we've had in game, which is absolutely wonderful. The only real difference I can see between this and the other one is it's slightly better, and I really mean slightly better. There's nothing really to it. And then, once again, 2538 FFARs. So that is the tree in its entirety. I think it's a very good start. The bombers, especially Tier 1 and Tier 2, look absolutely stunning. Tier 3, once again, seeing the introduction of the MC205s, the G55SO, and the Z1007 bombers, it's going to be really fun to play. And then Tier 4, I think they're going to run into a few problems, just because they're going to start running into the other nations, which have much better aircraft than they do, but maybe the P108s can bail them out of a few situations. The G91s at 8.0, hopefully they don't get up to too much. I'm pretty sure they can't to 9.0, but if they get down tiered, or if they stay at the same tier, they should be at least competitive. It's all going to depend on how well they turn. The F-84G being at the same BR as the F-84B, I'm not exactly sure I agree with that, since this is basically a better variant of it. And they also need to change the picture there, since it says USAF. But anyway, that is the Italian tech tree. Next time we'll have a look at the tanks, and also the planes that aren't Italian that are coming to the game. I'll see you then.